What's up, everyone? Welcome to this day in Philly Sports History for March 7th, 2024. I'm your host, Jim Montgomery. Welcome to a Thursday edition of the podcast. It's not raining as of now, but apparently more rain is on the way. But as always, let's start with a recap of yesterday's question of the day. And I asked you, who was the most beloved Philly sports athlete of all time? And kudos to my listeners for not being caught up in recency bias and being able to think independently and critically. With 45% of the vote, you guys said it was Brian Dawkins. I was afraid that it was going to be a lot of recency bias and you guys would have gone with Jason Kelce. Kelce did take second with 20%. Chase Utley and AI were tied with 15. And then J-Roll had a couple of write-in votes for 5% of the total votes. As always, thank you for participating in the question of the day. 267-495-8531 gets you in on the voice and text line. We will have another question of the day later in the show. Completely missed this yesterday in all of the Jason Kelce excitement and everything that was going on. But the Union on Tuesday night did play to a 0-0 or 0-0 draw against Pachuca. And I don't know how I missed this on my notes. They were written, but completely forgot to mention it yesterday. So that means leg one is tied. They will play leg two on Tuesday night in Pachuca. Saturday, they are home in Chester against the Seattle Sounders. Be sure to check out A League Apart, the exhibit at Camden County College on the legacy of the Negro Leagues and the barrier breakers involved with that. Brian Michael, who is the producer of that, did a great job. I sat down with him a few weeks ago on Back to the Future, so go check that out. Back to the Future with a PH, wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on YouTube. And be sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel and like and subscribe both podcasts because there will be a Phillies preview coming up shortly. All right, time for our bubble watch. Again, like and subscribe to the podcast so I can get a real bubble sound, but you can picture it. Anyway, Nova's bubble chances, or tournament chances, I should say, took a shot yesterday at a 66-56 loss in Seton Hall. It was actually a pretty good game. I watched most of it. They should still be in good shape. They have a big game coming up Saturday at home at the Wells Fargo Center against Creighton. And then the Big East tournament starts, which the Big East tournament, it's always my favorite conference tournament to watch because not only the teams, for the most part, top to bottom, that league is pretty solid, but the games are always good. But I will say it pained me, to see Shaheen Holloway there on the sideline because had he not got injured, I still think Temple would have beaten Seton Hall. But instead, he got injured, and it led to Ty effing Shine coming off the bench and hitting like 10 threes or whatever it was. Still bitter. I had my kids before bed yesterday saying Ty effing Shine. Wife didn't really appreciate that, but they got it. Ty Shine, Seton Hall. Just, one of those teams that, as irrational as it is, I will always root against them. And it didn't help that they actually won. And Shaheen Holloway, who was the guy that got hurt, that led to Ty F and Shine, is the guy that I kept seeing on the sidelines. Like, tape up your ankles better, dude. On a positive note, the Temple women did win 74-53 over Florida Atlantic yesterday to finish their regular season at 19-11. And that was good enough to clinch them a three-way tie for the regular season American Conference Championship. They will have the 3 seed going into their tournament, which is good for they get the first 2 rounds, they get a bye. So they don't play till the quarterfinals, which will be Monday. It's still up in the air on who they will play, but looking forward to that. Something to cheer for. Nova this weekend, so good. Some college hoops, but it pains me that this is the state. This used to be my favorite time of the year. Always, my wife's birthday's on Sunday, and we used to always get into fights because her birthday always fell during either the Atlantic 10, the Big East, or the American tournament for Temple basketball. And obviously, I got to watch. And now it's just like I did not watch. I maybe watched a half of Temple basketball this year because it was brutal, absolutely brutal. And that's combined over the course of a couple games I've watched. I have. So it's just sad. However, this is not a Philly sports-based story, but I'm not sure if anybody heard or read this. The Dartmouth men's basketball team voted to unionize the other day. And while there's still a lot of things that need to be worked out as far as what does that mean, obviously the university is fighting it, but they wanted to consider themselves as employees of the university, which would give them a say in their it's like a step up from the name and likeness from what I was reading. And there was just, I guess it just happened recently, so like I'm still doing research and reading into this, but it would give them more say, I guess, in work hours and what they can and can't do, because I guess especially in the Ivy, apparently, and I don't know how it works because I didn't think the Ivy gave away scholarships. So that's why I got to do a little bit more research. But it's interesting because they could get kicked out of the Ivy League and the NCAA for doing this. And I think this is important because if I remember back when Ed O'Bannon for UCLA, who's sort of like the grandfather and the precursor to all of this name and likeness stuff, is because I remember playing the game. It was the EA Sports NCAA basketball. I forget the official name, but he said we should be like, they didn't use their name, but you knew who number 31 was on UCLA. Just like I used to play with Temple all the time, and I'd be able to tell, and the attributes, all of it was the same, and that's sort of what led to the name and likeness. So this is key and something to keep an eye on, especially for a team like Temple, who took a lot of chances on different things, and they all seem to have blown up in their face. But this could change the whole entire landscape of college sports and get it more to what I was thinking, where you might have the big schools, like the 4 big conferences, serving more as a sort of minor league, G League, or F League, whatever you want to call it, to the other sports, which might lead to more competition on the collegiate level. So it's, I don't know. And again, I don't know enough about it. I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I know enough, but I know this is a major landmark thing that will have ripple effects across the entire NCAA. So stay tuned for that. I will continue to watch and look into this story. But again, this is something that really could change the entire landscape of college sports. Whether or not that's for the better or not, that remains to be seen. However, for somebody who like me, I mean, I don't know. Like Temple has its own issues with unions and teaching assistants and all of that. And there is no pot for name and likeness, so that it's hard for them to get players. So it's not like times are going to get better. However, if something like this kind of changes, you might have more like a shift in the competitive balance where the better players play in whatever the big league is. Again, I don't know. I want to look more into it, but I wanted to mention it during the bubble watch because there is a local connection there for our local team. So we'll see how that goes. But that was today's bubble watch. All right, Phillies were off yesterday. They are back in action today against the Rays. The Philadelphia Sports Hall of Fame ballot is up. And while as a fan you don't necessarily have a direct say in who gets in, your voice can still be heard. Go to phillyhall.org/fansvoice, fill out a bracket, and if your bracket closely, or ballot, sorry, I got brackets on my mind, Joey Brackets. Fill out your ballot, and if your ballot most closely matches the 2024 induction class, you will win 2 free VIP tickets to the ceremony in November. Go to phillyhall.org/fansvoice. The deadline for this is Friday. We're meeting on Tuesday to officially tally the ballots to see who will get on for that induction class. Absolutely go check this out, because I keep telling you, this class is it's a monster class. So go to phillyhall.org/fansvoice for your chance to win 2 free VIP tickets to the Philadelphia Sports Hall of Fame induction ceremony in November down at Live Casino. All right, Flyers news. They're in Florida tonight. A huge game on the ice, but Danny Briere and the front office had a busy day yesterday. The trade deadline is Friday. They made 3 moves, one coming late, so I'll get into that in a minute. But the big one was they traded defenseman Sean Walker and a 2026 fifth-round pick to the Avs in exchange for a conditional 2025 first-rounder and defenseman Ryan Johansson, who they immediately put on waivers. It's likely that he's not going to get picked up by anybody, so they might be able to bring him back. But essentially, it was a salary dump for Colorado. The Flyers are taking on his cap hit for the rest of his cap hit for this year, and they get a first-round pick in the process. Now, it is a top 10 protected pick. However, Colorado is a Stanley Cup favorite, so it's unlikely that next year they're going to fall to the top 10. So you're probably looking at like a somewhere in the 20s, mid to late 20s is this pick. But what's great is they have 2 first-round picks next year, now 2 first-round picks in 2025. So they're kind of laying the groundwork. If you're paying attention to what Danny Briere is doing, he's putting that master's class he took at Penn is paying off here. So overall, it was a trade that really everybody seemed to think it worked out well for both teams because Walker can certainly come right in and contribute to the Avs, where the Flyers now have 2 first-round picks in 2025 as they continue their rebuild. Sean Walker was on an expiring contract anyway, so it's not like they're giving up anything long-term for their future. They did, speaking of the future, the second move they did was they did extend defenseman Nick Seeler as well. He's having a good season. Obviously, he just got put on the injured list with an upper body injury. I think it was upper body injury. With NHL, it's so weird how they do that. It's either upper or lower body. So who knows what's wrong with him. But so far, and I said this last night when I finished my prep for today, they're off to a great start. And then last night, they were a part of a 3-team deal between the Kings, Flyers, and Flames, where I didn't see what the Flyers gave up per se because it kind of just it happened. Like I got the notification almost at midnight last night, but it seems like they picked up or got back that 5th-round pick that they traded. So essentially, they traded Sean Walker for a first-round pick and extended Nick Seeler. So not a bad day with still, at this point, about 2 days left in the trade deadline. So we'll continue to monitor that. But they are in Florida tonight, and it's a big game on the ice. But it seems like they're not necessarily saying we're not going for it, but they still kind of have an eye on the big picture, which they seem to be set up nicely moving forward. From one end of the spectrum to the other, no pun intended, the Sixers. Tyrese was out again last night. He must clear the NBA concussion protocol, which I guess there's a 5-step thing. But bad, horrible, terrible, whatever adjective you want to use to describe it, lost last night to the Grizzlies, 115-109, in a game that they were up 15 points and just couldn't get it done. Tobias is back to being Tobias, had 8 points, could not hit a shot at all. This is a bad loss, especially against a team that you should have won. And the schedule now gets much, much harder for the final 19 games. They appear to be headed to the play-in tournament. And it was going to take an epic collapse. However, I mean, if they play the way they've played the past 20 games, it wouldn't surprise me if this team completely misses the playoffs. So it begs the question now, what do you do with Joe? Do you rush him? Do you just say, we're putting you on ice until next year? We'll build a team around you. I don't know, but man, this team is just, they're lost with that. This is where you need a third option. And Tobias just couldn't get it done. It's just brutal. I don't know. And I don't think if you get in the play-in tournament, I have to look this up and I'll write it down and come back with it tomorrow. But I don't think if you get in the play-in tournament, you have a shot to get into the lottery anyway. So, I mean, it's almost like back when we were in purgatory, when we were fighting for like the 8th seed in the playoffs and getting it and then getting blown out. So we'll see what happens. Maybe they can turn around. Man, bad loss for the Sixers last night. All right, Eagles news. The one last thing on Kelsey. I know things just keep coming up. I said that yesterday, but this is pretty cool and just tells you kind of the guy he was or is. He had the athletic trainer who taped him up for years. He actually taped up his ankles for this retirement ceremony. Joe Appella had taped up his ankles for years, missed his final game, the playoff game in Tampa, because he was getting chemotherapy. So it was sort of one last little tribute to his trainer, and really meant a lot to Joe. So, and again, this is just the kind of dude that Kelsey is. So I wanted to make sure I mentioned that because it was a story yesterday. But I mean, I think this should be what the story is, not chaos in the locker. Like, this is the kind of guys they have in that locker room. But you're not going to see Marcus Hayes do anything on this. Unless I didn't read the paper today, unless he did do it today, which in that case, I will take it all back. But knowing him, he did not. Probably something about why didn't he tape up? Let's the other trainers tape him up or something. But enough about that. Avonte Maddox is going to get cut. It's going to save the Eagles $2 million in cap space. It is a situation where he could end up re-signing, maybe for a year. It's unfortunate. They did this with Fletcher Cox a couple years ago. He came back, but I don't know if they're going to do this. I mean, I'm not sure what really they have lined up to replace him, but he's often hurt, and it's just kind of one of those things like, but they are saving some money on the cap as we head into free agency, which I still think tampering is it has a negative connotation. Legal tampering, like, to me, that's an oxymoron. But what do I know? All right, PhillyGoat.com. Go get your stuff for Philly season. Get those fans. I'm telling you, those things are hot. Like, I cannot wait. I'm going to order my pair probably next week. I'm going to order them and the Cape Mays. And they just match it with any Philly shirt, really. And they have a ton of them. They have Bryce Harper shirts. If you want to go show support for Kelsey, they have some Jason Kelsey gear. Just go check out what they have. These things, the shoes are amazing. The shirts are even better. And the decent cost. And why not get ready for spring? Because the rain's going to be out of here soon. And then you're going to need something to wear. So go to PhillyGoat.com. Use the promo code Jim Montgomery for 10% off your order. That's PhillyGoat.com. Promo code Jim Montgomery for 10% off your order. And a quick note on the shoes. There are men's and women's. So buy a pair for both. I mean, why not? Be that couple on the boardwalk. I mean, you're going to get attention, and rightfully so, because they're awesome. All right, today we're going to go back to 1982. And on this day in 1982, the Sixers beat the Lakers 119-113. Dr. J had 20 points, 9 rebounds. Kareem had 26 and 10, while Magic had 16 points, 11 rebounds, 8 assists. But the big story was Andrew Toney, who went for a career-high 46 points to go along with 5 assists. He did so on 21 for 29 shooting. So he was shooting lights out, and he did this off the bench, and he did not hit one three-pointer. It was interesting looking at the box score. This is the early days of the three-point line. I think there was only one three-pointer attempted in the game, and that was by Andrew Toney, and he missed. The Boston Strangler was an eighth overall pick in the 1980 draft. Was a two-time All-Star and a vital part of that 83 championship team. Everybody talks about how Moses put them over the edge, but I think lost in that was, one, how Toney played against Boston in the playoffs, but also, like, this was like his third season, so it was kind of him coming into his own. He averaged 20 points and had 4.5 assists. Unfortunately for him, injuries, specifically bone spurs in both feet, ended up cutting his career short, and then there was some fallout between him and the organization for years, just about they either didn't believe him or tried to force him to play. I forget the exact story. But it's unfortunate because he was one hell of a player, and everybody who played with him said he's a Hall of Famer if his career had been longer and the injuries didn't get to him. Meanwhile, that 1982 Sixers team went to the NBA Finals. That was the year in Boston where the Boston crowd started to beat LA chants. They would lose to the Lakers 4-2 in the finals. But on this day, back in 1982, the Sixers did beat the Lakers 119-113. Andrew Toney going for 46 points on 21 of 29 shooting for his career high. And unfortunately, just could not overcome the injuries and had his career cut short, which ultimately leads to today's question of the day. Which Philly star most had their career most impacted by injury? And is it Andrew Toney, who would have been a Hall of Famer by all accounts had it not been for the injuries? A guy like Randall Cunningham, who came out gangbusters early in his career and then got hurt 2 or 3 more times after he hurt his ACL while playing for the Eagles. Tim Kerr, who was a scoring machine that just could not stay healthy. And unfortunately, I have to put him on the list. Is it Joel Embiid? And we all know the injury history, especially coming down toward the playoffs and everything with him. So, interesting question today. I feel like we've had some good questions of the day this week. 267-495-8531. Let me know what you think. Do you like the questions of the day, or am I full of shit? But to me, which Philly sports star has had their career most impacted by injury? And this is tough, man. I don't know. For me, because of my Eagles bias and the fact that I grew up on him, and I still say, because I saw him every week when they put it, the What If Wednesday for the midday show on WIP. To me, the only what if that matters in Philly sports history is Randall's knee. And with that defense, would they have competed for a Super Bowl that year? So for my vote, I'm going Randall on this. But let me know what you think. 267-495-8531. Which athlete had their career most impacted by injury? Andrew Toney, Randall Cunningham, Tim Kerr, or Joel Embiid? Let me know. Finally today, our Philly Sports Women's History Month Spotlight. We're going to talk about Anne Townsend, who was a multi-sport star from Marion, PA. She was key in the growth of field hockey and lacrosse as an intercollegiate sport for women. She did play field hockey, lacrosse, and basketball at the University of Penn in the early 1920s. She was the captain of the basketball team. She was an All-American in lacrosse. She helped begin the United States Field Hockey Association and served as president of that organization from 1928 to 1932. While she was doing that, she was the captain of the United States Field Hockey Team from 1924 to 1938. Yes, that was a 14-year career as a field hockey player for her. She was a driving force between just establishing the Women's Athletic Association at Penn. And then, by the way, she also played tennis. And as a tennis player, she was a 2-time Delaware State singles titles champion while repping Marion Cricket Club. She was the Pennsylvania Eastern singles title holder in tennis in 1921. And she was not done. She founded the Morstead Sports Camp to create opportunities for girls to play sports. She's in the Penn Athletic Hall of Fame, the Pennsylvania Sports Hall of Fame. She was in the inaugural class of the United States Field Hockey Hall of Fame. She's in the Philadelphia Sports Hall of Fame. Anne Townsend, who, when I say multi-sport, I literally mean multi-sport. Tennis, field hockey, lacrosse, basketball. And she was damn good at all of them. And that's not even counting her legacy of help growing the sports of field hockey and lacrosse for women, starting the women's sports movement at Penn, helping girls get involved in sports, period. She's just one. And again, these are the kinds of people I'd like, because you've never heard of Anne Townsend before, but she had such a major impact on things that we don't even know about. So Anne Townsend is today's Philly Sports Women's History Month Spotlight of the day. On this day in 1982, Andrew Toney scored a career-high 46 points in the Sixers' 119-113 win over the Lakers. Make sure you let me know what your thoughts are on the question today. Which Philly sports star had their career most impacted by injuries? Is it the aforementioned Andrew Toney, Randall Cunningham, Tim Kerr, or Joel Embiid. 267-495-8531 get you in. Let me know what you think. Are the Flyers done? Do they have more left in them? What has Danny Briere got cooking? He's doing his best Howie Roseman impersonation. So far, so good for the Fly guys. Are the Sixers cooked? Let me know that on the text and voicemail line. 485 oh my goodness. 267-495-8531. Slow down, Jim. Slow down. All right, trying to get this in for you guys, but man, try to stay dry today. Enjoy whatever little bit of nice weather we might have. This has been This Day in Philly Sports History. I'm Jim Montgomery, and until next time, I'll see you when I see you.